Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular business meeting for the District Council for Tuesday, September 3rd. Hatsqualin, Quitluknuk, Squamish, Owemeo. We meet tonight on the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. This is Council's first meeting after their August break, so if we're a little bit rusty, please forgive us. We have an amended agenda in front of us. There's been a delegation that was added that we missed in preparing the agenda. That is on us. That's item 2 under delegations. And there's a few blue pages at your desk, Council, that were submitted. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adopt the amended agenda. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Any notice of motion? Seeing none, we'll move on to delegations, petitions, and proclamations. First up is a request for a letter of support for the Howe Sound Biosphere Region Initiative. Ruth Simons, welcome. Wherever you're most comfortable, you can sit or stand.
Good evening, Council, and welcome back, and thank you for practicing on me. I'd like to introduce also, this is Ian Wynn, who's part of our working group for the Howe Sound Biosphere Region Initiative, former director of the Sunshine Coast Regional District. We're here this evening to ask for your support for our nomination document going forward to UNESCO for Akatsum Howe Sound to be designated as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. Previously, I think I was here several months ago with Fiona Beattie when we were talking about the Marine Reference Guide and gave a quick update. We have been continuing to make progress on our nomination document. We're continuing to tell the story of the region, biodiversity of the region, sustainable development, how the region is a model area for the world of international significance for our glass sponge reefs, for the best practices that we exhibit here in the region for sustainable development, reconciliation, and how we manage our relationships, the community of communities, how we work together to look forward to a sustainable future. So rather than take up a lot of, I don't have much time presentation, I did provide a letter that had the previous indication of support. What we need for the nomination document is a signature of endorsement that would join all the other communities in Howe Sound, provincial government being the Ministry of Forest Lands, Natural Resource Operations, BC Parks, and Fisheries and Oceans in supporting the application.
Ms. Simons, can you give us an indication of what happens once this is submitted? So timelines, how we find out, when we find out, that sort of thing?
Yes. UNESCO has intakes for for biosphere reserves, any new biosphere reserves around the world in September of each year. So this nomination would go first to the Canadian Commission for UNESCO. The Canadian Commission has to endorse it as well. Then, so we're hoping to get it to the Canadian Commission this fall. So there's lots of time for back and forth, and then for them to endorse it and submit by next September. And then the announcements, if we get through the next round of approvals, then it would be June of 2021, the earliest that we would be announced. But there would be a very good indication prior to that.
Great, thanks. Council, any questions or someone want to move the motion? Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor Pettijohn. Any comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I look forward to putting my signature on that.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Kenneth Perry to talk about the 20th anniversary celebration of the Fung Institute of Taoism.
That's correct, Mayor. Mayor and Council, it gives me a great pleasure to formally invite you to our 20th anniversary celebration of practicing Tai Chi in the community of Squamish. Now, Fung Institute of Taoism has a very small but diligent group of practitioners here in Squamish of about 25. And we're very proud for the fact that we've been able to continuously practice the art in Squamish for 20 years. And as a milestone, I have a personal VIP invitation that I want to present to each one of you today. And it's for Saturday, September the 21st at 3 p.m. We're going to have Tai Chi presentations as well as introduction to Tai Chi, refreshments, and tea. So for those of you that are not familiar with Tai Chi, it's very, very good for your physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. And we firmly believe that for those that diligently practice the art, it will improve your health and prolong your life. And it's something that we are anxious to share with everybody in the community. So it gives me great pleasure to present you with a personal invitation to our 20th anniversary celebration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You just have to go back to the microphone, Ken, thanks.
I just wanted to mention one other thing. Because it's such a special day for us, it would be wonderful if we could have at least one or two representatives from the district come and join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming this evening,
Yeah.
and appreciate the invitation. Given how much we sit, it would be nice to do something more active.
Would you like a 5-minute demonstration? You can come up and join me.
I wish I could say yes, Ken, but we need to get through our agenda.
All right. Well,
But thank you for that.
And lovely meeting.
Thank
you.
you.
You haven't met before.
Next up is a proclamation request to proclaim October 15th, 2019 as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day 2019, and that the Adventure Center be lit up in honor of the Wave of Light. Do we have Ms. Arthur?
All of our lighting has been stolen from, we don't have an ability to do the lighting right now at this current time. I don't know if the Adventure Center people have.
When you say all of our lighting has been stolen?
Yeah, the lighting.
All the
that we
spotlights
purchased,
at the Adventure
they've
Center?
been vandalized, yeah. Stolen. So the only thing we could look at doing is maybe not the Adventure Center if we can, and Ms. Golbeck is not here, but see if we can do any exterior lighting in front of carport. That would be the only thing. We can't do exterior lighting at the Adventure Center because it's different kind of lighting.
Just for that day, there's not like a temporary light we can put in
We
place?
can look into it, absolutely, 100% we can look into it.
So what do you want us to pass as a motion? Is obviously we can proclaim the day. Our intent is to try and let staff work to find an appropriate venue in honor of the Wave of Light ceremony.
Or a means of.
Or a means, okay. So that council proclaim October 15th, 2019 as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day 2019 in the District of Squamish, and that staff work to find an appropriate way to honor the Wave of Light ceremony.
If possible.
With the citizen who's put this forward, if possible.
Can I make an amendment?
You want to make an amendment?
Yeah. My amendment would be to remove the year 2019 and just leave it as October 15th as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day in the District of Squamish, because the correspondence suggested that they had passed this last year.
We can only proclaim on a yearly basis because we can't restrict future decisions of council. So
All right.
it's an inconvenience to the folks that would like an annual recognition, but we have to follow that process.
That's all right. Thank you.
All right, so the motion's on the table, moved by me, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor, opposed, motion carried. In line with our zero waste strategy that Council proclaimed October 21 to 27, 2019 as the Waste Reduction Week in the District of Squamish. Moved by Councilor French, seconded by Councilor Anderson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Any consideration of unscheduled public attendance? So this would be anyone who feels they need to speak, not related to the public hearings tonight, that can't wait for 2 weeks till the next regular business meeting. Seeing none, we'll move on to our public hearings. So this is for the District of Squamish Official Community Plan Bylaw number 2500 2017, Amendment Bylaw number 2664 2019, and also our zoning bylaw amendment number 2666 2019. Councillor Herb.
I declare conflict in this matter. My business occupies retail space in one of the properties being considered, so I'm going to excuse myself.
Where will you be?
I'll be in your office.
Okay, well, let me get you. So I'll turn it over to staff, and then I'll read my statement before we open the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Really? Oh, sorry. I have to read my statement first, sorry. This public hearing is convened pursuant to Part 14, Division 3 of the Local Government Act to allow the public to make representations to council respecting matters contained in the proposed District of Squamish Official Community Plan, Bylaw number 2500 2017, Amendment Bylaw Residential Rental Tenure Zoning, Policy number 2664 2018, and Amendment Bylaw number 2666 2019 of our District of Squamish Zoning Bylaw. Everyone present shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. No one will be discouraged or prevented from making their views known. However, it is important that remarks be restricted to the matters contained in the proposed bylaws. Members of council may ask questions following presentations. However, the function of council at a public hearing is really to listen rather than to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw. In considering the proposed bylaw, council has received documents which may influence its decision. These documents are available for review and comment and have been included as part of the planning department report, or if received later, handed out at the meeting and included in the public hearing package. If any documents are submitted during the hearing, please feel free to review the documents during the hearing by asking staff. Members of the public shall maintain order and quiet and shall not applaud or interrupt any speech or action of members of council or any other person addressing council. I'll now call on the planning department to introduce the bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jessie Fletcher, planner with the Community Planning Department. Tonight I'm presenting the Residential Rental Tenure Zoning Amendment Bylaw and Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw prior to the public hearing. The municipalities were given a new authority to zone for rental tenure in May of 2018. The legislation provides local government with a greater ability to preserve and increase the supply of rental housing in their communities. The bylaws were given first and second reading at the July 16, 2019 regular council meeting. The bylaws, if adopted, would implement residential rental tenure zoning on 12 existing non-stratified rental buildings. These 12 buildings contain a total of 309 existing purpose-built rental units. Staff engaged with the owners of the rental buildings prior to crafting the amendments by way of telephone conversation and email correspondence. The intention behind this update is to preserve the existing number of rental units on the subject properties so that in the event that the owners seek to redevelop, they would be required to provide the same number of units. To support the application of residential rental tenure zoning, staff have drafted new OCP policy. The OCP policy amendments recognize the impact on development potential for the affected landowners by including language that both supports consideration of increased density for sites that have rental tenure zoning and that reinforces the desire to retain the number and size of rental units in redevelopment. These OCP policies are to be included in Section 12, diverse and affordable housing. The amendments to the zoning bylaw would limit the form of tenure on affected properties to residential rental for the existing number of purpose-built rental units on the subject properties. Owners of these units would not be permitted to occupy their units. The only permitted form of tenure would be rental. The benefit of these amendments is that in a redevelopment scenario, an affected property owner would need to provide the same number of rental units that currently exist on site, but may be permitted to develop additional for sale units that may be owner occupied. The approach has the additional benefit of establishing a definition and standard regulation of residential rental tenure, which then could be applied in the future to any proposed purpose-built rental. The zoning bylaw also establishes the average size of a unit of 76 square meters or 820 square feet. This would apply in redevelopment. This number would provide flexibility for the developer to provide a range of unit sizes and types, provided the unit sizes average out to the average size. The number was based on national rental data of the average size of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Staff recognize that this average unit size requirement may not reflect the size of existing units and may be challenging to achieve on certain sites. A developer could seek a variance to the average unit size through a redevelopment proposal. The affected developments are located in the following neighborhoods. There's one development containing 9 units in Brackendale, 3 developments containing 76 units in the Garibaldi Estates, 4 developments containing 139 units in Wilson Crescent, 2 developments containing 56 units in the downtown, and 2 developments containing 30 units in Valley Cliff. Legislative and district processes for engagement were followed. Notices were hand-delivered and published in the August 22nd and 29th editions of the Squamish Chief. To date, 17 comments and questions have been received regarding the proposed bylaws. 11 letters of support were received, including 10 from residents of one of the subject properties. Of those letters that were questioning or in opposition of the proposed bylaws, issues raised include difficulty of meeting an average size, and staff would just like to clarify that the average size can be varied as part of a development permit or changed through a rezoning process. Lack of increased density as part of this bylaw amendment. Again, staff would like to clarify that the amended OCP language recognizes that it may be appropriate for council to support increased density at these locations given the residential rental tenure. Any increases in density would be required to be achieved through a rezoning, whereby council would have discretion on whether or not to support any application. And a misconception that this is a development application, which staff have clarified that this is not a redevelopment application. One question was forwarded to staff from a member of council prior to the public hearing. The question was regarding the interaction implication the average unit size provision in the zoning bylaw may have with the existing OCP policy that requires a one-to-one replacement for existing rental. Staff would like to clarify that this is a belt and suspenders approach. The rental tenure zoning is relevant in a situation where no rezoning is required because the zoning permits the desired level of density. The one-to-one OCP policies become relevant in a development application where rezoning is required. Both are intended to ensure no loss of rental units. Where the average unit size creates challenges for redevelopment, a developer could apply to vary the average size. So that concludes staff's presentation prior to the public hearing.
Thank you. So I'll go to council first for any clarifying questions, and then I will go to the floor and ask for public comments. Any clarifying questions at this point, council? Councilor Pettengill?
The way the bylaw update is written, does it obligate a council to entertain four-owner buildings as long as the minimum rental is required? Or is that still just council, would it remain with council discretion to say, no, we expect this land to be 100% rental, and that is council discretion? Or are we sort of committing to allowing some owner-occupied building?
Through you, Mayor Elliott, it would depend on the situation. If the redevelopment was only a development permit and they could meet the minimum number of rental units that is required, and they could also provide for profit within that density, there would be no discretion. Whereas if they applied for rezoning because they were seeking additional density, council would then have the discretion to approve or turn down the rezoning depending on what they were proposing. So if, for example, they proposed to rezone with a portion of for-profit units, non-market rental, council would have the discretion to turn down that rezoning for that reason.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll go to the public now. I just have one person on my list, so once that person speaks, then I'll ask for anybody else that wishes to speak. First up, I now invite the applicant or representative to comment on the proposed rezoning, after which persons affected will be given the opportunity to speak. After I've confirmed it, it's your turn. Please approach the podium and commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address. Please note that you will have 5 minutes to address council. We do adhere to that time. If you have more to say, we just ask you to take a seat, and then you can always come back up if you need to finish your statement. So first up is Otto Boffo. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. So just name and your address, please.
Yeah, my name is Otto Boffo, and I'm at 4680 Hastings Street, Burnaby. I'm a part owner and manager of 38170, 38180, and 38190 Westway, Valley Cliff. We purchased a building, a 3-building, 22 unit, about 40 years ago. In fact, 40 years ago, almost to the day. I was a lot younger at that time. The building is getting tired and needs a lot of work, and I think it probably lives most of his life expectancy. The maintenance cost is getting higher, property taxes are going up, rent increases are restricted, as we all know, and there will be a day in the near future that the building needs to be replaced. The proposed OCP changes will affect this property value drastically. It will impact the development potential going forward. And there's no certainty of any possible density offset will obviously create a problem for us. As I understand it, this OCP changes is to limit the loss of existing rental. I believe that it's not the property owner's job to provide affordable housing unit. It should be a job of all levels of government. The last time that I appealed the property taxes, which have been almost double in the last few years, I was told that my rents are too low and I should be raising the rent to the standard that everybody else is charging in the area. And they base their value not on our income and expenses, but on the average income that property are on the area. I thought that was quite peculiar that we have a body of a government that increases the taxes based on information that are not quite relevant, and we are basically have no way of doing anything about it. The OCP should not come to a cost of the owner that have been providing good housing for many years. I'd like to see more affirmative density increases to offset the additional cost to provide rental replacement whenever that may happen, if this is going forward.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Come forward. Is your name and address?
Good evening, Council. My name's Joanne DeFern, and I'm a tenant at Garibaldi Garden Courts. First, I'd like to bring to Council's attention that we did not receive the notices when we should have. I happen to have found an envelope on the far side of the building with the public hearing information in it. That was on a Friday. I'd asked my neighbors if they had received this letter, and they said no. So then I came down to council that Tuesday, and as it turned out, someone, Carly from the engineering department, hand-delivered 64 of these notices to the residents. I find that the information is geared to council and the legal terms, etc. I would like to see maybe just a brief paragraph of what it actually means. Because I'll tell you, Facebook lit up. Everybody was panicking that they're going to be sold, that they're going to be redeveloped, that they're losing their housing. It was a nightmare. So should the third reading go through, for Garden Court, a friend and I produced letters and went around to our neighbors and got them to sign and print their name with their addresses on, saying that they agreed to these amendments. So maybe just a better way of handling that information that goes out to the tenants or the public.
I don't know if staff wants to just speak to our process right now, so.
Yes, through you, Mayor. So our process for delivering notices in a public hearing is to mail it to the owner of the land. And we don't always have the information for the tenants if it's a rental building. So what we do is we hire a local service provider who delivers the notices by hand. In some cases, if it's a single entrance to the building, they simply leave a stack of notices at the entrances. I believe in this case, as soon as we heard from a member of the public that there were issues that they didn't receive a notice, Carly Simmons, our administrative assistant, did go out and redeliver all the notices. I think we've confirmed with our provider that they hand delivered to the address, but perhaps due to weather or something, some of the residents didn't receive it.
Can we speak to the plain language provision that was mentioned?
Yes, I think we're always trying to do a better job at making sure that people are understanding the main intent of the bylaw. And I believe when the questions were raised on social media, the district also clarified it on our Facebook page, the intent of the bylaws. So we could certainly do a better job of that.
I wasn't aware of the Facebook page, for then I would have, told my neighbors, here's the information, check it out. But I mean, it was myself and another neighbor who canvassed the 64 suites, to get our letters in. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this public hearing tonight? For the second time, is there anyone who wishes to make any further representations? For a third time, is there anyone who wishes to make any further representations? Council, any other comments? Questions? Okay. There being no further speakers, I would ask, nope, did that already. Seeing no further submissions, please note that council members are not permitted to receive further submissions or hear either a proponent or opponent to an application once the public hearing has been concluded. Any and all communication must now be channeled to staff. Being there are no further speakers, I declare the hearing closed, and thank you very much for coming this evening and for your submissions. So we move right from the public hearing. Staff are recommending that we proceed to third reading. So council, at your pleasure, there are motions in front of us.
I'll move the motion.
So you're moving the official community plan?
Yes. Are we doing this one at a time?
Yes, we have to do the one at a time.
I'll move the OCP motion.
So it is moved by Councillor Stoner and seconded by Councillor French. Any comments, Councillor Stoner?
Yeah, I think that this is a new legislative tool that has been given to us by the province, and we're one of the first communities to start to implement it, and I think that is exciting. It allows us to secure 309 rental units which currently have no protection on them. I think that's really important from both our OCP, this council strategic plan is, and just the reality of many of the folks that are living in our community that need these rental units. I also think that the OCP amendments in particular aim to fairly compensate the landowners by including the new OCP policies that allow for density bonusing, recognizing that landlords are put in a hard spot when there are older buildings and there need to be renovations done to them. So hopefully we are trying to find a balance here with the policy that's in place as well as putting protections.
Thank you. Councilor Pettengill?
Yeah, I guess I have some discomfort, just trying to weigh this against, with the short-term rental, we've headed towards the direction of most restrictive approach there, with the hope that will result in more long-term rental, and the idea that pardon me, housing first is a priority. And so I guess I'm a little bit uncomfortable with some of our commitments around owner-occupied development on some of these lots, and I'm not sure that I'm quite there yet, that we've got with these various policies, a fair balance of our approach.
Councilor Ritz?
Thank you. I'm going to support this motion. It is, I think, just a sign of our times that we do need to protect rental accommodation. It's an important part of the housing spectrum, and without protection, it can disappear on us, which is not what we want. I do recognize that there are some concerns with this, and one of them was pointed out in correspondence council received, where an existing building had units that were smaller than the minimum that is in the bylaw, and yet they still provide an important part of, or important form of housing in the housing spectrum. And whether or not, if they redevelop, would they have to increase the size of the units? Does that make it even possible? And the second was brought up by one of the speakers here. Why not offsetting density in the bylaw? And I think my answer to both of those is the intent of this bylaw, I think, is to secure rental accommodation. I recognize these buildings, many of them are old. They were built in a different time and a different market. Redevelopment of them will almost certainly require some significant change of form and probably increased density. And it may be most appropriate, actually, to increase the density just as a better use of the lands. So I think in a rezoning application like that, which I doubt any of them would be rebuilt exactly as is, but in the rezoning application, council in the past, in my experience, has been flexible. We often consider variances in the course of those applications. And so, for example, with respect to the size, if we have a building that has existing rental of a certain size, council could consider allowing the next building to have existing rental of that size, even though it's less than the minimum in the bylaw. We have that flexibility going forward. And with respect to density being added, frankly, I think that's almost a given. Just the economics of it would not really work, in my understanding of the development business, unless there was additional density. And then much of that would be at market, whether it's market rental or market for sale. I guess we have to wait and see what the proposal. But this bylaw allows us the flexibility to consider these. And if we didn't provide enough density, then it's not going to get rebuilt. I think councils will always recognize that. There's a commercial reality to these decisions. And so we would have to be able to see that housing stock continue to refresh itself. So I think there is enough flexibility in the bylaw and in the process generally to allow this to succeed, and I hope it does succeed, and I will be supporting this resolution.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'll make mine. I'm happy to support third reading. I think when we began this discussion, it was really to take a short-term action to protect at least these units. And that as part of the larger zoning bylaw review, we would look at a second phase that could include protecting more current rental units, or looking at other things like protecting the amount of rent people are paying so that gentrification doesn't move people out if the building is redeveloped. And we're seeing that in municipalities like Burnaby, who have put forward quite an aggressive policy to not only protect the number of units, but also the rent that people are paying. one of the biggest issues around leaving room for development is that people get priced out of the market. Some of these older buildings are what people can afford. And I think finding that balance is really important here, allowing both development to happen so that old buildings don't become derelict because people have underinvested in them because they don't see the potential in them, but also not incentivizing gentrification and moving people out of our community that want to live here. So I think we have more work to do. It will be interesting to see. We're one of the early adopters of this new zoning tenure in the province. I'm interested to see how my colleagues in other communities start to implement this rental zoning. And I think we have to see how BC Assessment starts to assess these buildings, given they are now rental zoning. They shouldn't be reflecting the highest and best use and punishing landowners unnecessarily. So I think that's something that council needs to keep an eye on and make sure that we're lobbying the province to ensure that landowners are recognized for the fact that we have now put this rental zoning on their buildings. Regardless of whether there's upside potential, they should be valued at their current use, not their highest and best use. And certainly that's something that I'll be keeping my eye on going forward. But for now, I think this is the right first step to protect rental zoning in our district, and I think we have more work to do in the overall zoning bylaw rewrite. Any other comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for your work on this. Thank you for coming tonight and speaking to the bylaw. Oh yeah, and our zoning bylaw. Zoning bylaw moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor Race. I think we've said what we need to say. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We can get Councillor Herford back. See Councillor Anderson fueling up with coffee. How's your jet lag, Councillor Anderson?
I'll nudge them.
All right. Okay, next up we have the District of Squamish Remuneration and Expenses Bylaw, number 1503, 1997, Amendment Bylaw number 2694, 2019. Do we need to take a recess? Are we having technical difficulties?
No, it's bigger technical, but we're gonna pull over.
We can proceed?
Yeah, so it's just for the recording of the,
Okay.
except now it's not working.
I guess we're going forward. You don't have any slides, do you?
I don't.
You don't. Great. That solves our problem. Over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Charlene Pollock. I'm the Manager of Legislative Services, and I'm here to talk about the Council Remuneration Bylaw Amendment that is before you. So a little bit of background information. The bylaw was discussed at the July 23rd Committee of the Whole meeting, and as well in relation to per diems, and the exempt staff conference attendance policy was reviewed, and staff reviewed per diem comparison with a number of municipalities. The per diem had not been reviewed or increased for a number of years. Also discussed on July 23rd was out-of-country travel, and it was requested that staff look at a higher amount or including payment based on local currency. And as well, it was requested that there be the ability to receive payment of per diems ahead of time in special circumstances. The bylaw currently speaks to receiving payment after. And council directed that the expenses and per diem section of the bylaw align with the staff policy. So the following amendments are included in the bylaw. This is just a housekeeping item. The financial officer replaces treasurer throughout the bylaw. The per diem amount was increased to $75 per day. It's currently $65 per day. Meal amounts were included in the bylaw to be deducted from the per diem if meals are provided. And the meal component totals $60 and the incidental portion is $15, which hasn't changed. And per diems would be reduced for partial day attendance. And an advance in expenses may be provided if expenses are expected to exceed $500. And out-of-country daily per diem will be reimbursed at the country's currency exchange rate, and actual costs may be reimbursed for out-of-country travel at the approval of council, so that would require a council motion. And that is it. The staff recommendation is that the District of Squamish Remuneration and Expenses Bylaw number 1503, 1997, Amendment Bylaw number 2694, 2019 be given first 3 readings.
Council, any questions? I just have a question on the bylaw that was included in our agenda package. It says under section 2, incidental expenses, a portion of the remuneration for a member of council set out in section 1 being 1/3 is an allowance for expenses incidental in the discharge of the duties of office. And I believe that was taken out by the federal government at the beginning of this year, and just want to make sure that our bylaw reflects that now.
Thank you. Through the mayor, we did still include that, even though, because we're still treating it as though it's a form of expense for other purposes. But so when Ms. Glasson updated it, she looked at that provision. So I believe it's the new consolidated version.
We used to get 1/3 of our salary tax-free.
You did.
But we don't anymore. And isn't that what that is referring to?
We still treated a portion of the salary as being that expense allowance, though. You just aren't able to be taxed on it, and then we raised the salary component so that you would take home the same net pay.
We did that at the end of last term.
Yes, but I think that mayor's concern is that we're still referencing it as being third allowances, but that was intentional.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm on the right side of the federal law now, so.
You are.
And our bylaws
We are
reflect
taxing
that.
it correctly, sorry.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? All right. Councilor? Yes?
Now I have a question. So that used to be for expenses. We actually received that money without actually having to account for the expense. But now we don't get that. We get salary instead. We get T4 for 100% of our salary instead of just 2/3 of what we received before. But when you say it's an allowance still, we don't actually receive it unless we have a specific cost that we put in receipts for that's otherwise enumerated in the bylaw.
For clarity, through the mayor, we consider the out of district travel to be in excess of the allowance that's provided for incidentals. So we consider a portion of your salary to still be for expense related type activities within the district, and that's what the bylaw covers. The additional wording for per diems and travel outside of the district was always in excess of your salary.
So it's still considered an allowance, notwithstanding the fact that we get T4 for it?
Correct.
Okay.
We just made sure we adjusted your salary to make it the same net outcome after tax. Is that
Clear? Yeah, I've got it now. Any other questions? Seeing none? Someone want to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Stoner. We give first 3 readings to amendment bylaw number 2694, 2019. Second by Councillor Anderson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we move on to our council correspondence policy amendment. You are still in the hot seat.
Thank you. So I'm now here to speak to the council correspondence policy amendment that is in front of you. So this policy was also discussed at the July 23rd Committee of the Whole meeting, where we reviewed current practices and the council mail SharePoint library. We spoke to improve processes and advised on information available in the council SharePoint library, including operational matters that are assigned to staff for response. An automated response was added, so when people send an email to the council group email, they receive an automated response. Following discussion at the Committee of the Whole meeting, staff amended the policy. So there are some administrative amendments to reflect current practice. It had been a while since it had been amended. Staff, mayor, acting mayor responses will be included with the original correspondence when applicable and available before the agenda goes out. So we'll make every effort to include that. Receive and file items on the council agenda. There'll be 2 parts now. So for information, so that's correspondence that is strictly received for information. And then correspondence that has been referred to staff for response to look into. So on this agenda, we've done that. We've kind of split it in for information and referred to staff. All correspondence directed to council will be included in the council mail with the exception of public hearings that are received after the hearing date, so we won't move those in. And the CAO and the corporate officer will assign council correspondence. And this hasn't changed. Correspondence that is addressed to 4 or more council members will be forwarded to staff by the mayor or acting mayor for inclusion in the council mail. And invitations, correspondence of a sales nature, and complaints will not be included on council agendas, but will be included in the council mail. And the staff recommendation is that council approve amendments to the council correspondence policy as outlined in the attached policy and as presented at the September 3, 2019 regular council meeting.
Council, any questions? Councilor Pago.
Yeah, so when I was reading through this, the purpose of the preceding policy made a lot of sense to me. In this one, I kind of feel like we're missing something in terms of, why? Like, I think the answer is we want open and transparent government for the public to be able to see all the information that's coming in. And so that sort of language, I think, is missing from the purpose. I'm not sure it's something that we absolutely have to deal with tonight, but is that something where we could correct when this comes back for final reading, or is this an editorial change, or do we just deal with that next time around maybe?
Well, if council would like to see some wording added in, we can do that now.
It's not a bylaw. Do you have an amendment?
I didn't really want to wordsmith it tonight, maybe just going forward, a suggestion that the purpose actually reflect what we're trying to achieve by having such a policy. And I think the preceding policy was a good example of that. I'm just not sure that it's worth wordsmithing this right in this spot.
Well, it's not on the agenda to bring it back again during our term necessarily to review it. So if you want the change, I can give you a few minutes if you want to add the wording that you want to add.
I think, given the nature of this policy and where we are, I would take it as sufficient to just sort of take this into consideration for further policies that come before us, and next time this comes before council, maybe we can make that correction. The basic policy itself is still the same, so this is more the preamble, just suggesting for next time around. I don't think it's a deal breaker.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, does someone want to put forward the staff recommendation? Moved by Council Riggs, seconded by Council French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Finally, we have a Public Arts Select Committee appointment that Melissa Pearson be appointed to the Public Arts Select Committee as the Downtown Squamish Business Improvement Association representative for one-year term ending June 30th, 2020. Moved by Council French, seconded by Councilor Herpert. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to community planning and infrastructure. Mr. Wilson's joining us. First one up is Integrated Stormwater Management Plan Phase 2 contract award.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Dave Rolston. I'm the Manager of Municipal Infrastructure for the district. Here today to recommend award of 2 contracts. The first is the Integrated Stormwater Management Plan. Council adopted the district's first district-wide asset management-based integrated stormwater management plan in 2019. It laid out the framework and priorities for future catchment-based integrated stormwater management plans. And the highest priority catchment-based ISMP is the Howe Sound watershed, which includes all developed areas south of the Mamcon River, including downtown Squamish, the North Yards, Business Park, Loggers Lane, Valleycliff, and Hospital Hill neighborhoods. The scope of this plan will be to collect environmental data and evaluate watershed health, to build a hydraulic model and assess drainage capacity, review natural assets and provide recommendations for protection, to review the Mamcon Reunion Project to identify any areas for improvement, to review conditions in the Loggers East neighborhood and provide recommendations for the ongoing sub-area planning initiative, and to prepare a final integrated stormwater management plan with a 20-year capital plan. The district issued an RFP on BC Bid, and we received 3 competitive proposals. A team of 3 staff reviewed and ranked the proposals and unanimously ranked Urban Systems the highest due to their overall capability, experience, and work plan. And for that reason, it's recommended that the District of Squamish award the consulting services contract for Phase 2 Integrated Stormwater Management Plan to Urban Systems, and that the Mayor and Corporate Officer be authorized to execute the agreement.
Council, any questions? No questions?
I move the recommendation.
Councilor Stoner moves the recommendation, seconded by Councilor Herford. Any comments? We're just really glad to see that natural assets continue to appear in our stormwater management plans, because if we don't have to build it and maintain it, that would be great. So thank you for turning our attention in that direction. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And then you now have the Powerhouse Springs Production Well Pump and Piping Installation Tender Award.
Okay. So the district has 7 groundwater wells that provide water supply to the community. In 2018, well number 3 was decommissioned due to ongoing maintenance issues. Last year, the district completed the first phase of replacing that well by drilling a new well. The second part of that project is to install a new pump, piping, and electrical equipment to tie the new well into our water system. The district prepared a tender package and posted it on BC Bid. We received 2 bids, however, only Coastal Mountain Excavation Limited tender was considered compliant. Their pricing was considered reasonable by the district's consulting engineer, but it does exceed the district's remaining budget for this project. So based on that, staff recommend to supplement the budget with another water capital budget item, which is for a new reservoir. The 2019 budget for the new reservoir was intended for land acquisition. However, the district is not anticipating being in a position to spend those funds this year. So as such, we propose to use a portion of that project budget for the new well and to top up the reservoir budget as part of next year's financial plan. Both projects have the same funding source, which is 99% development cost charges and 1% from the water utility. So based on that, it's recommended that the District of Squamish award the tender to complete the Powerhouse Springs Production Well Pump and Piping Installation to Coastal Mountain Excavations Limited, and that the Mayor and Corporate Officer be authorized to execute the agreement.
Any questions on this one? Councilor Baggio.
So I'm glad to see we have budget for this. Can you just comment in terms of our expectations around the lifespan of the pump and the things we're replacing? Are we sort of within a margin of error, or is this kind of unexpected, or does it support what we've analyzed?
So this is the first well that we've had to decommission, and it was likely due to sediment that is unexpected sediment that was accumulating around the well casing. So it was sort of an unforeseen event based on the knowledge that we've learned through this. That well was installed in 2003, 2004, so it's been in service for close to 15 years. But we are taking some learnings from that. So we did a pilot borehole in the location of the new well. We took soil samples every foot, so we have a really good idea of what soil we're putting the new well into, and we've designed the well casing according to that. So we're taking some of these learnings and improving it with our ongoing design. But a well-maintained well that is put in the right spot should last many, many years. So longer than 15 years. I'd say this was a case of basically unforeseen ground conditions.
Any other further questions? Someone want to put forward the motion? Staff recommendations moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Race. Any comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
I just was going to point out I have a program at onlinewhistler.com/programs. It's a pilot program.
Sir, it's not appropriate to bring that into
Thank you. Have a nice day.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next up,
It's actually not online until tomorrow at noon.
Interrupt our meeting. Next up, Wood Fiber LNG Draft Community Services and Infrastructure Management Plan Referral. Mr. Buxton.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Gary Buxton, General Manager here at the District, one of the General Managers. The Community Services Infrastructure Management Plan that has been submitted by Wood Fiber is one of 3 plans, management plans or mitigation plans that are required by the EAO approval. We received all 3 of them in late July or early August. Those being the Community Services one, the Marine Transportation Plan and the Traffic Management Plan. The Traffic Management Plan, they subsequently amended on August 27th. So we're looking at a slightly new version of that. But the issue being is that the timeline for responses back was 30 days. So we're already past that on the Community Services Infrastructure Management Plan. So we're having some difficulties getting comments back to them on time. We certainly couldn't do that with the first 2 plans, given that we couldn't get to council anywhere close to the timelines that we had at that point in time. Rather than focusing on the contents of the plan, the intent really was to focus tonight on consultation. They are required by the EAO to consult with us, but what we got were finished plans. There was no consultation leading up to that point. So we got them cold with 30 days to respond, and then that doesn't allow us to get in front of council in any meaningful way. We have done some, well, I have done some initial reviews of those, but we haven't shared those with Wood Fiber. We wanted to get in front of council first, and principally to deal with the consultation issue. So the motion that we addressed really didn't deal with the content of the plans. It only dealt with what we considered the lack of consultation and the inadequate timelines. Having said that, today I got an email from Wood Fiber stating that they were willing to extend the consultation period for all three of those plans. I didn't get a chance to follow up with how long that extension is or how much additional time that we have. So I'm not sure how council wants to deal with the motions that we have proposed.
Council, any questions, comments?
Just a comment. When I read this, I went back through some of the documentation on the EAO website, and part of it was wood fiber's compliance reporting. They're responsible for, I guess, overseeing their own compliance with the regulations. And condition 24 states, I know that we're primarily concerned with 3 plans where the District of Squamish is directly called out as an organization that wood fiber must consult with, but condition 24, basically as I read it, says that wood fiber must consult with the public in general on all of the plans and the implementations. And I think in the same way, there seems to have been a shortcoming on consultation with these 3 plans with our organization, the District of Squamish. That is a common condition, circumstance throughout all of the conditions. And so I think however we proceed forward, it may be worth including something so that wood fiber does a better job with the public on all the conditions. I think we represent a large portion of the public, and I think it's important that we're paying attention to that and not just the 3 conditions that we specifically are called out on.
I will add, just for context, that the SLRD passed a similar motion. The board did when we were there. Was that last week, Councillor Rees? For the same reasons, lack of consultation and the timeline, especially for a board that only meets monthly. And I will say that in my work on the implementation committee for the new Environmental Assessment Act, I have raised this issue multiple times, that in communities that have busy agendas and for regional boards that only meet monthly, 30-day timelines, do not mean that that's consultation, and nor do those timelines work based on when staff have to submit reports for review before they come to council. So in the background, I'm trying to make sure that under the new act, those 30-day timelines become a thing of the past for local government. In the meantime, we have a decision before us about whether to officially register our concerns with the EAO at this time. And I think that the challenge for me is that we have Fortis leading one portion of this project that is engaging with the district in a very different way, and engaging with the community around their community services and infrastructure management plan. And the approach, as Mr. Buxton described in his presentation, which really does not come close to meeting the bar on local government consultation. So the intent is not to be confrontational. I think the intent of this motion is to say we deserve and expect something different on behalf of our community in the efforts of, if this project is going ahead, I think it's our duty to make it the best possible project and have time to consider and weigh all the impacts it may have on our community. And so my sense at this point is that we pass the motion, and I'm open to that conversation. Councillor Rees?
I was going to move the staff recommendation. Seconded, I'll speak to that.
Seconded by Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. And I was part of the regional district board that passed the same resolution, and I think it is appropriate for this to be sent. I, as many of you know, am a supporter of this project and have been in the past and continue to be, but notwithstanding that, I think that this doesn't quite meet what we need in the consultation required for this particular thing. The timeline to me is one concern, but I also read the report, and frankly I think it's, even to a layman, is somewhat deficient in some of the information we're going to need to be properly consulted and also to make decisions and deal with the potential impacts of these traffic and workforce. So I think it is appropriate, staff are correct to bring this to us and ask, but I think we should register our concern with the Environmental Assessment Office.
Councillor French, Councillor Stoner.
Yeah, I too will be supporting this staff recommendation, and it frustrates me that I am, because when I opened the council package a few days ago, I immediately went to this issue because it's one that many people around me are concerned about. And wood fiber LNG really has fallen short in consultation and in content. And they need to hear that, and I think they have already heard it, because I've seen some correspondence that indicates wood fiber LNG saw that this was not well handled, and indicating they're going to address that. Nonetheless, I think it's important for us to get on the record our feelings of how this came to us, and this will achieve that.
Thank you. Councillor Stoner.
I too will be supporting the motion. I think it's important that we respond to the EAO. I think silence is otherwise seen as perhaps not engaging in the process. And I think the point's been raised that the reports themselves are deficient. The 30-day referral is not considered, or should not be considered, consultation. And it also just blatantly fails to acknowledge our lack of staff capacity on this. The fact that there were 3 reports sent to us at once with a 30-day feedback is a huge challenge. We don't have the staff capacity to respond to that quickly. So I think those are important things to raise in the process, so that we can ensure that the process moving forward is more.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Yes, I think it's important. I'll just speak just to the issue of housing. That we importantly have a robust discussion of plans for housing. I just returned from a LNG facility in Hammerfest in Norway, where this issue was highlighted to me by the municipality of Hammerfest. 2 things. There were lingering effects even 10 years later after construction and the operations, effects on the housing market that weren't necessarily anticipated. Secondly, they retained some temporary workforce housing facilities that had unexpected new uses. And we should consider that Squamish is a location for temporary workforce housing, also for the pork mill and pulp mill. When the pork mill and pulp mill is shut down, they use Squamish mostly as the place where the construction team or these workers. So these are things to keep in mind and to be discussed in a sufficiently detailed manner on our part with wood fiber LNG. There are diverse aspects to consider with housing. I agree with Gary Buxton's observations on this area.
Thank you. Councillor Herford.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion, and frankly, when I saw what this was, what our agenda package, that we'd had 3 large reports forwarded to us for a 30-day consultation during a 30-day break from council, it really felt like we were trying to be working out these things to be slid through the system, so that, which does not come anywhere close to the constitution, to anyone's definition of constitution. So I was disappointed that this is where we are, and it feels an important message we need to send as we go through and try to figure out what the effects are going to be on our community and how we mitigate them.
Thank you. Councillor Bingham.
I'd like to propose an addition, an amendment. That the district notify the EAO that wood fiber LNG has further failed to meet its obligations to consult with the public on all plans and implementations as outlined in the conditions of their certificate. So it's just addressing that final piece, that condition 24 piece, try to keep it in the framework of what's written here.
I think your motion should probably refer to that condition 24, your amendment specifically.
As outlined in condition 24 of their certificate.
Is there a seconder to this proposed amendment? Do you want it read again?
Yes, please.
Yes.
That the District of Squamish notify the Environmental Assessment Office that wood fiber LNG has further failed to meet its obligations to consult with the public on all plans and implementations as outlined in condition 24 of their certificate.
Do you have condition 24?
I don't know. I'm afraid it's in again, wood fiber is one of their compliance reports with regards to care certificates, what they will and won't comply. They're not required to report on compliance with this one until I think 2 years after construction begins, but they are required to consult on all plans and implementation throughout. Is what the condition seems to say with the public.
So there's an amendment proposed. We would need a seconder to put it on the floor.
Second it for discussion.
Seconded by Councillor Stone for discussion. Councillor Riggs.
Yeah, I don't think I can support this amendment. I appreciate the intent, but I think, first of all, without a little bit more information in front of us, I'm a little hesitant to support it. We don't know exactly what they've been doing with the rest of the public. The due date is not for some time in the future. And I think that's the type of amendment that, or type of thing that it's really the Environmental Assessment Office that has to make the call on that and police that. And I'm not sure that we're in a position to do that. So, as I say, I appreciate the sentiment, but I'm worried about some of the technical aspects of that amendment, so I will not support it.
Councillor French and then Councillor Anderson.
I won't be supporting the amendment. I feel that the motion, the original motion, does what we need to do.
Councillor Anderson.
In the recent past, I have worn different hats in representing organizations and interest groups in dealings with wood fiber LNG, consultation on a variety of topics, including with Hemmer, the consulting company. And my experience has generally been good. So I'm a little bit, would be a little bit concerned that it's maybe a little bit a catch-all expression of disappointment that I don't think I would be able to support. In some of the consultation on other matters, in my experience, has been excellent.
Councillor Paglia.
Just to clarify a couple things, while the due date for requirement on reporting on their compliance is not from, I believe, 2 years of construction's beginning, they are required immediately and throughout to engage and consult with the public. So it's not like they don't have to. They are not required to start consulting 2 years from construction. That should be ongoing now. And I guess I struggle a little bit to suggest to understand, these three reports that we are specifically called out on and are responding to are part of a whole body. And I certainly haven't seen any more about any of the other reports than I have on these three. Pay a whole lot of attention to this file. So I think this is just asking for our public, who we represent, the same level of consideration that we're asking for these reports, for all of the reports, which the EAO certificate seems to require them to do, and doesn't seem to have been done.
So I'll add my piece here. I know that both proponents, both Forest and Wood Fiber, had requested to appear before council before the summer break, and their intention is to do that in the autumn. I think that, for me, is an appropriate time to ask them about public consultation, and so that our community as a whole can hear what their plans are. I think their email today was an effort in good faith to start over. And so I would like the opportunity to speak with David Keane and Wood Fiber and register our concerns about both these management plans, but I am also happy to raise condition 24 with him about community consultation. I think at this point we should stick to what we have been asked to respond to because this is going to the EAO. Wait to hear about what their public engagement plans are when they come before council. And then if you would like to pass a similar motion, if you don't hear something satisfactory, I think then council would be, I certainly would be more, I'll speak for myself, more apt to support this motion. But I think we're prejudging something that we don't have visibility on yet. So I won't be supporting the amendment. Any other comments? So, yeah.
Just one quick point. I mean, I guess I would say we do have visibility into that because these three, which we have said they have not given us adequate consultation on, they are obligated to give the public the same consultation or consultation as well. Not just information, but consultation is the word used in the certificate. And so if they have not done it for us on these three, and unless we believe they have sort of behind our back talked to the public about these three reports, I think it is entirely consistent with the rest of this motion. But I do appreciate your willingness to follow up with Mr. Keeney on this.
So I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Opposed? Councilors French, Stoner, Mayor Elliott, Councilor Race, Councilor Anderson, Councilor Burr, opposed. Motion fails. So back to the original motion. Second. Yes. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question on the original motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Boxer.
Okay, just one item, Councillor Stoner. Both Fortis and Woodfibre have both offered to fund staffing position, and we're in the. I actually have someone in place within the next few days. They should be active and going on these files. I didn't have any lead time to get that up and running, so I'm a month behind schedule on that. But we have someone in place and they'll be starting work tomorrow on this. Thank you.
Okay, so we're moving on to our consent agenda. So if there are any minutes you need to speak to or any of the letters, and you'll see that our new process is in place. There's a sheet for information, and then the items that have been referred to staff for response. I want to pull letter 7, the BC Oil and Gas Commission letter. Any other letters or minutes?
Letter 6.
Letter number 18, Louise Jardine, Ornery between Shipsy.
That has been referred to staff for response, but you still wish to speak to it? Okay, so all of those will be discussed at the end of 12A. Motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda, moved by Councilor Stoner, seconded by Councilor French. All those in favor? All those motion carries. There are no late agenda items. Correspondence. So we have P. Schindler waiving garbage fees for home dialysis patients. That this correspondence be forwarded to our Chief Financial Officer for consideration. Moved by Councilor Stoner, seconded by Councilor Herford. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. As for me, this is from the Environmental Assessment Office about Squamish Terminals and their dredging project. And they've asked for a request for comments. I think this is to consider it as not eligible for assessment.
Correct. They are assessing whether or not it should be assessed or not. Yes.
And so that would be referred to staff for comments. Moved by. I have these conversations at the committee all the time. Moved by Councilor Herford, seconded by Councilor French. Question, Councilor French?
Sorry, refer to staff to give us more information or to?
No, just to reply back to the EAO office as part of the working group. We're identified in that letter as a member of the working group, and so technical details would be referred back to them, and they would make a determination about whether it should be assessed. And so multiple agencies and stakeholders from that committee, and Mr. Buxton, are you our representative?
Correct.
Would comment on behalf of the district.
So we are delegating it to Mr. Buxton to decide whether or not this deserves an assessment? Or we?
No, we're delegating to him to comment on the information put forward, and this dredging project is part of our infrastructure submission with the terminal. That piece of it. So that's what we're referring to, is that he's a member of the technical committee, and through the EA process, our staff were members of technical review committees, and so their comments would go through that process. It would only be official responses that came back to council for review on plans, like we just did in the previous motion. So that's what's on the table. Okay. Did I have that moved and seconded? Okay. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. B. Gibbons, protection of groundwater. This is to protect our groundwater from being bottled and sold, and this would be referred to the Director of Community Planning. Moved by Councilor Herford, seconded by Councilor French. Any comments, questions? Councilor Pingle?
Would that sort of have the effect of including it in our bylaw review?
Mr. Buxton, would that fall under the bylaw review?
Yes, we can deal with that issue in the zoning bylaw. It's the best.
Do you need our motion to be more specific then, rather than just a referral to the Director of Planning for consideration in the zoning bylaw rewrite? Yes, please. Okay, we'll add that to the motion. Is that okay with the mover and the seconder? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. T. Jenkins, speeding on Eagle Run Drive, that correspondence dated August 13th. And I'm sorry, Mr. Jenkins, that your letter arrived during the council break and that we're just dealing with it now. Be referred to the Director of Engineering. Moved by Councilor French, seconded by Councilor Herford. Any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Letter from Tracy Saxby requesting a letter for support for the Zero Carbon Challenge. This is not committing us to anything. This is committing us to, so that they can attract funding for a Zero Carbon Challenge around Howe Sound.
I will move that we support this.
Moved by Councilor Pengal, seconded by Councilor French. Pitting community against community in this race to zero carbon. That sounds fun. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We had a letter from Mayor Sebring about the Surrey Police moving to a municipal police force. And so the motion here is that we send our own correspondence to Brenda Butterworth-Carr, Assistant Deputy Minister and Director of Police Services, in support of the correspondence received from Mayor Sebring, dated August 27th, relating to our own concerns surrounding the creation of a Surrey Municipal Police Department. And I would say that that letter would be written in consultation with our inspector in charge. Let me add that to the motion. Moved by Councilor Stoner, seconded by Councilor Pango. Any questions, comments? Councilor Pango?
I'm sure it's a much longer discussion, so I'm just looking for a pretty superficial answer, but where are we in thinking about mitigation and planning and preparing for what may come of this? Is that something we'll start to talk about during the budget maybe, or?
It's too early to tell. So as Mayor Sebring's letter talks about, Surrey contributes a huge amount to our shared resources of the RCMP, so the integrated teams. And so without their contribution, while they won't be using resources, the rest of us that use them aren't sure we can afford them at the level that we've grown accustomed to. And so we're not sure that that conversation is happening at the table, representing the views of all the other municipalities that will be impacted by this. So this is basically to give the ADM a heads up that there's a lot of us that are concerned about how this will impact our budgets and our policing going forward. It's a big issue. So, you know, they report on the impact on Surrey and how much it will cost them. No one's talking about the other municipalities that share the integrated teams, and they're a big part of that. So we won't be probably talking about it in this budget go around because we don't have the information yet. As soon as we do, yes, we're going to have to come up with a plan. I don't know if staff have any more to add in that regard. You?
There's no decision made yet, of course, but other local municipal police departments also can choose to participate in integrated teams. So there's a possibility that for that particular program that Surrey would continue to do it. But that's just an option and no one knows yet.
Yeah. So I'll move. Wait. Someone already moved this? Boy, I'm rusty.
Yes.
Someone's moved it and seconded it? Great, I don't need to do that. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we'll do our letters that we pulled from the consent agenda. We'll go in order. Councillor Pettengill, you pulled letter 6, the letter to Minister Mungo.
So long ago now. Oh, yeah, so I'm wondering if I could request just a little more information from staff at some point. My recollection was, because I asked both Wood Fibre and Forest very explicitly, who will be paying for the pipeline, and if the project fails for whatever reason, will ratepayers be stuck with it? They were both very explicit that under no circumstance will a ratepayer ever be stuck with the infrastructure costs associated with the pipeline. As I read the letter from My Sea to Sky, it seemed to suggest that, as I understood it, what the BCUC has done, ratepayers are now on the hook for this. And so I'm just wondering if at our next meeting, if it's possible to get a bit of clarification on that.
It may be if I can get that answer from the BCUC. I'm hesitant to commit to get an answer from somebody else, but I can ask the question, yes.
Do you need a motion, Mr. Buxton? Yes. That's staff.
That staff confirm ratepayer responsibility for the pipeline infrastructure.
With the BCUC. Moved by Councillor Pettengill, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. I pulled letter 7 because we received the information that Wood Fibre had issued their permit to operate through our web portal. So it didn't come to a corporate officer, it didn't come to the general manager of community planning infrastructure. It came in through the one that public uses when they don't know who to contact. So we sent a letter to the BC Oil and Gas Commission, and the letter we got back actually didn't address our concern. And we did send them a contact person, so are we clear that they got the gist of our letter? They said, oh, don't worry, the BCUC will be meeting with you soon to talk about the permitting process. I just wanted them to make sure they had the right name so it didn't go through our web portal anymore. So can we double check? There is a name in their letter. You don't have it in front of me. So can we just follow up and make sure that they actually recorded the name of the person who should receive future correspondence from the BCUC? So that I'll move a motion that staff follow up with the BCUC based on their letter dated August 14th to ensure they actually have the name of the person who should receive ongoing correspondence related to Wood Fibre LNG. Moved by me, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And Councillor Anderson, you pulled letter 18 between shifts theater.
Yes, this is a letter from Between Shifts Theatre regarding community theatre and performing arts, short and long-term critical needs relating to facilities. The reason why I pulled it is my understanding that the staff referral has been to the Arts, Culture and Heritage Strategy and to the acting director responsible for those aspects of our programming, but that it should likely also be referred to the manager of real estate, for the reason that there's a specific request regarding a facility, the old fire hall, presently occupied by the Helping Hands. And further a question, are there any other buildings or warehouses that the district could offer? So I'm suggesting that the referral to staff does include the real estate department. And my own background is that I've collaborated in the history of community theater going back half a century, and these issues are perennial. And I also note that I've seen correspondence over different periods concerning this building in the past. So there is a file likely in our real estate department concerning theater use inquiries for this particular building.
So Councillor Anderson moves that this letter also be referred to Real Estate Services.
That's correct.
Seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor, opposed, motion carries. Thank you. We have recommendations from Committee of the Whole that staff be directed to bring forward remaining immediate actions from the 2018 Squamish Marine Action Strategy for consideration in the 2020 budget process. Moved by Councillor Grace, seconded by Councillor French. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Boulevard maintenance bylaw update that the district of Squamish Council direct staff to prepare a boulevard maintenance bylaw based on the feedback received at the July 23rd committee of the whole meeting, and maybe it'll come back with a different name. Moved by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Race. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And I can't pass this one. I am in conflict. My child attends a school that was built by the developer who did the Skyward community, so I am going to recuse myself. I'll turn to the acting mayor.
All right, so the recommendation that came out of the Committee of the Whole is that the staff consider development of an adventure hub at the bottom of Doad and Tantalus Road while redirecting Skyridge Community Amenity Contribution Funds. I would like to make an amendment to that motion, because I'm not keen to amend it, do I? I'd like to propose a new motion that helps just clarify a little bit the direction to staff. So my new proposed language is that the $25,000 portion of the Skyridge CAC, originally intended for an eco-toilet, be maintained for trail infrastructure and amenities and not directed to trail development. And that staff be directed to identify the best location for an adventure hub and implement accordingly. Moved by Councillor Rice.
Sure.
Have a seconder? By Councillor Anderson. Councillor Rice.
Thank you. We received a lot of correspondence in this, and speaking for myself, I was a little surprised at the correspondence in the sense that I didn't think we really made the decision to actually move the hub down there. Motion was to consider it, and that's what I was thinking, is for staff to kind of scope it out. And if it works, it works, and if it doesn't work, and there's reasons it might not work, then it wouldn't go ahead there, and we'd figure out something else. So this maybe adds a little bit of clarity to that, so I'll support this motion.
Councillor French.
I believe I'll be supporting this motion. And one of the things that I'd like to focus on is the phrase adventure hub. I believe that from our previous discussion and now into this one, when we use that phrase adventure hub, we do not intend to have a toilet be part of that adventure hub. And I want to be certain that we all agree that that's exactly the intention here. Because as we've seen from the correspondence, there seems to be a great deal of concern about a toilet being located.
So the intention is not specifically to exclude or include the toilet. I think most of our adventure hubs in this community do have toilets in them. Mostly because we do get a lot of negative feedback from folks who are experiencing people using their lawns as toilets and the trails as toilets. And so providing that sort of infrastructure is proven to be something that the district has stepped up to do in other locations. But I will leave it at that if you feel like you'd like to amend the motion or you'd like that for further discussion, that can be put forward. Councillor Pettingill.
Can I just request that you repeat
Yeah.
the motion, please?
So it's two parts. That the $25,000 portion of the Skyridge CAC originally intended for an eco-toilet be maintained for trail infrastructure and amenities and not redirected to trail development. And that staff be directed to identify the best location for an adventure hub and implement accordingly. And I'll put a little bit in my, go ahead, Councillor Herpes.
I appreciate that we're clarifying our point. I think we're getting to where I felt we were that meeting, so I appreciate that. And I just think that it leaves it even more vague than we want with the Explore and Adventure Hub. Is that community-wide? Is that within the general area as part of that neighborhood interfaces with the outdoors? Like that? I don't know, I feel like we should sort of frame that in a little bit better. That's really wide for me.
I would welcome an amendment to the motion if you would like. My rationale there to keep it open was that I think the biggest portion for me of this conversation is that the amenity be maintained for trail infrastructure and amenities and not be redirected to trail development, which was the proposal that had come forward previously. So I am not personally tied to whether it ends up in this particular neighborhood or if there's somewhere else that we identify is more in critical need of trail infrastructure and amenities, but if somebody would like to change that, then that's.
I'm okay with that as well. Is there any restriction with this, the CAC policy about using those funds in the adjacent area to development, or is that development okay just to generate the funds and we can apply them further on down the line? I just want to make sure we're not where we are with that.
Sorry, through the chair, I don't believe those, if council's directing it through a motion, that is fine. I don't believe those CACs are indelibly tied only to that development.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy with probably supporting this motion. I think that it's become quite obvious throughout the district that so that access to our beautiful surroundings hasn't been considered in the same way as we need to and as we are right now. So if there's an area that has a greater need, then I'm happy with that. And it's hopefully we can ease the burden on our various neighborhoods and interface to the recreation opportunities by putting these in just the right spots, and then look forward to seeing what staff brings forward as to where those spots are.
Anybody else want to speak to it or question? Councillor Ray?
Yeah, I'll just speak to Councillor French's point because I tend to agree with him. And I like the idea of keeping it kind of open so that we can consider any part of the district and on a site-by-site basis consider whether or not toilets might be appropriate. And I know that was one of the key points of concern of the residents of the Dower Drive area. And maybe they might not be appropriate in that particular area, but other areas they might for the reasons given. So I think just keeping it flexible so that we can make a determination on a site-by-site basis is the way to go.
I guess I haven't made up my mind yet, but I'm a little bit just with the correspondence on a few related issues. There's a number of issues, but one of them seems to be that people would prefer to not have some of this activity right near them. And, you know, with the CAC, we've got that commitment. Some people may have changed their minds, but we have that commitment in place. And I'm a little bit hesitant about opening up a sort of community-wide discussion about who's willing to have this in their backyard kind of thing. And I don't know, I'm wondering if it's worth, you know, offer some flexibility in and around Skyridge, but this is a Skyridge, I think Skyridge has some responsibility for that amenity. Or an amenity.
Councilor French?
I'm going to support the motion, and I'm doing it with full faith that staff has taken the feedback that we got from the many people who corresponded on this issue, and come back to us with something that will be acceptable for the folks at Skyridge and the folks who live down below in the surrounding area.
So I've heard from a few folks around the table that there's interest in staff bringing this back. Am I hearing that correctly? Because currently the motion on the floor is that staff be directed to identify the best location and implement accordingly.
Sorry, I hesitate to interject into the debate, but we've done this in a number of locations without much incident, and these are they are temporary. They're not permanent fixtures. If they're not working, we can and we will remove them. So if we do choose to put one at Dowd and Tantalus and it doesn't work out, we will remove it. There are other locations we can go to. They can't go anywhere. They sort of do need to go where the trails sort of exit for them to function. But they are not permanent facilities. We can, if we do put them in a location that doesn't work, we can take them out. So, but if we have to, it's sort of coming back to council, it's going to be a very long, painful process to get any of these done.
Councilor French?
Yes, so I don't wish for this to be long and painful. I don't need for it to come back, and I do know the wording in the motion, and I can live with it.
Councilor Herbert?
I think that's one of the ones that said, I think my comment might have included that comes back with a bit more what the results are of this work, I don't need to see it again. And I also think that the more of these that we have throughout the community, the less issues we're going to have, because we're going to be able to spread out where the users go. So I think overall this should be nice. And then as we see more of these come. So.
I'll speak to it one more time, that I think that we hear time and time again that our facilities haven't been keeping up with the amount of folks that are on our trails. And we have amazing trails in this community, and people come from all over to ride, run, play in our forests. But this is an opportunity for us to maintain a community-wide amenity contribution to supporting trail infrastructure. I think that's the most important point for me at this stage. So I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We'll bring back the mayor. Yes, please.
Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing nothing.
Councilor Anderson.
Oh, Councilor Anderson?
Sorry, maybe I'm just a little bit meeting orientation of the agenda. This is item 13, approval of minutes. Are we there yet?
We just did all those.
We're at 14.
We're on 14.
I had an amendment for, that's not a critical thing, but for committee of the whole, July 23rd. Pass that.
13 was approval of recommendations from committee, but the minutes were approved in the consent agenda.
Okay.
Is that how do you want me to proceed?
Well, I guess we could still do it now.
Do you have an amendment? Is there a factual error in the minutes?
It's not a factual error, it's an incomplete statement regarding green strategy. I'll let it pass and bring it to staff's attention.
Okay.
Thank you.
So committee minutes and reports that council received the Smoke Bluffs Park Select Committee minutes dated July 18th for information. Moved by Councillor Stoner, seconded by Councillor anybody? Councillor Herford, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. We don't have any council staff in-camera announcements?
No, I didn't have those with me. I'll put the appointments in the open portion of the special.
Okay. No unscheduled question period. Open question period. Clarification related to agenda items.
Is that good?
Very good. Anyone else? Okay. Councilor staff announcements. Council, we did receive an invitation during the break to go to the northeast and tour the Cambrian site that is now owned by Woodfibre, and also the Mayor of Dawson Creek invited to host you as well, and I believe you would also see a tour of the one of the water recycling facilities. I know there's been some email correspondence with each of you to determine your availability. This would be on the 12th and 13th of September. We need to get an answer back to them or a request to delay the trip if it's just not going to work for people. So I know that I can't attend. Councillor Anderson, you were unable to attend. Councillor French, you were unable to attend.
Unable.
Councillor Race is unable to attend. And I know with UBCM being this month, we're also away for a good portion of that week, and many of you have jobs. So I'm not quite sure. We need to respond because this would be next Thursday, Friday, and I need to get an answer back. So I'm wondering if council wants to provide some direction on which way to go. Councillor Stoner?
I would like to request that we reschedule if there's an opportunity to do so for later on in the fall.
Okay. Councillor Pettengill?
Yeah, and I just, my own request is that as I read the proposed agenda and acknowledging that we are using our own funds to cover the trip, that it sort of provides a balance of perspectives on the issue. It seemed that it was sort of very focused on here's some of the benefits as I understood the agenda, and maybe I misunderstood, but I'm looking for sort of equal time if we travel there to hear sort of all the perspectives on it. So that would be my request.
Okay. But
in addition to the delay, this month is a real challenge. There's another training at Chikai.
Yes. Any other? Councillor Herford?
Yeah, I've been feeling really stressed to try to make this date work. For a later date, I'm interested in attending the students.
It is an invaluable trip. I know that Councillor Race and I both attended in my first term, his third. It is one of the great parts of the tour is spending time with the mayor and council up there to understand the pros and cons of being a very resource-based community and the options that they're looking at, as well as their efforts in renewable energy. So I found that conversation with Mayor Bumstead to be eye-opening, and just the sheer scale of the operations up there is pretty astounding. So it is worthwhile, but I think for now I will write back and say that there is interest, but this month is particularly challenging for us, and we'll see if we can't find another date later.
Well, I was going to say, if it is going to be in the fall, it should be soon.
Get cold up there.
As opposed to going up in the middle of winter. And if not, then perhaps later in the spring. I think it'll all still be there.
Yes, that is true. Councilor Fung?
Just one additional thought, if we did it in the spring as well, we might not have some of the budgeting issues because we just talked about sharing conference budgets and so on. Maybe this is something that we plan, maybe even reduce our overall conference budgets to make that happen, but then we could all go to the possible.
Okay. I will pass on that feedback. It's great for them to extend the invitation again, and I can say that the Mayor of Dawson Creek is a great host. So whoever does go, you'll enjoy it. I have to look at my calendar to see what else I have. Any other announcements? Councilor staff? Councilor Stoner, and then Councilor Henderson.
Coming up this weekend is the Brackendale Fall Fair is back this year on September 7th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And on Sunday, September 8th is our first community-wide clothing swap, which will be hosted at Brennan Park from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So if you have lightly used clothing that can be shared or swapped, bring it forward. Squamish can. We'd love to have you there in the district to find some new gems for your wardrobe.
Great idea. Councilor Henderson.
Yes, so tomorrow, Squamish will be hosting a large delegation from the University of British Columbia Faculty of Forestry International Forestry Program. These are students and faculty. They are here in large numbers again, second year in a row. Being international students, their interests in forest management and the forest industry are very diverse, from recreation management to bioenergy, silviculture, and industry facilities. And I raise this because Squamish really has a great opportunity to continue to be a great place to showcase the forest industry and forest management in all of its diverse aspects. We have a couple of local organizations and a few local companies involved in this, and I anticipate that in future the Squamish Community Forest could be an active partner in hosting this delegation, which is coming each year, it looks like, because they really like it here, and others as well. So they're coming tomorrow, and we'll look forward to future visits from UBC in the area of forestry, international forestry.
Thank you. Councilor Ford. I'll come over here, and then I'll come back.
Councilor Stoner, due to the punch on the Brackendale Fall Fair, so I'll just double down on Brackendale Fall Fair. It's going to be a great day out, and I want to see more of the town come on to Brackendale and the Brackendale Farmers Institute Park. It's from 10 to 5. And currently riding your bikes is a really good way to get there on that day.
Councilor French, then Councilor Pettengill, then Councilor Rice.
Okay, so I'll triple down on the Fall Fair.
What?
And simply point out that the Grand Fondo is also happening that day. So plan your trips accordingly, especially if you live on the east side of Highway 99 and you intend to go to the Fall Fair. Because the road closures affiliated with the Grand Fondo can really mess you up for travel. And I'd also like to acknowledge the passing of former Councillor Bill McNenny. He served as a councillor in the mid-1990s, and my heart is particularly close to Bill. He was my neighbor for many years, and I went to school with his daughter. He happened to be the parent speaker at my graduation ceremony. So Bill was an amazing community person who will be missed, and my condolences go to his family.
Thank you, Councilor Pettengill.
So one of my fellow councillors had a really big milestone the other day, and it was a pleasure to participate and celebrate this day with him. And my own similar 50 milestone is approaching, and it's a little bit scary, but it's good to see everyone in good spirits. So that was nice. On August 13th, before that I joined the Climate Caucus. And in Vancouver, the Climate Caucus, which is municipal politicians from across Canada getting together to figure out what we can do to deal with climate change. I think there's a sense that we have a critical role at the municipal level to deal with, we've got 10 years to make some serious change, and I think we're all kind of intimidated and sometimes discouraged. So it was really great to be around a bunch of people so eager to get moving on this with great ideas. Jagmeet Singh attended and spoke, and Elizabeth May attended remotely. Terry Beach attended on behalf of the Liberals. The federal Conservatives did not send a representative, but still there's some really good discussion, and it's one of those things where you leave a little more positive than when you arrived in the morning. So that was nice. August 16th, I had the pleasure to attend the Indigenous Youth Engagement in Howe Sound at Ketsum Forum. So it was a group of people in the community talking about what some Indigenous youth are doing. There's a fair bit of involvement in the Ocean Watch project and the Biosphere. So Ruth, who presented earlier today, was there, and so some really great discussion there. Saw the finish of Amped in the Park this past Thursday, and it's always sad when that finishes. That is just a wonderful community event that I'm very partial to, and just amazing talent in our community, and it's wonderful to see how supportive everyone is of each other. So all in all, a pretty awesome August.
Thank you. Councilor Race.
Thank you. Not to worry, there is still life after 50. But I did also want to mention the passing of Bill McNenny, who was a friend and somebody. He had a series of remarkable talents. One was in his professional life as an engineer, organizing ski races. He was involved in organizing ski racing, downhill races, World Cup races in Whistler. But I got to know him through the Rotary Club, and when I joined the Rotary Club and worked with him and saw him work on a whole variety of fundraising projects. And if he had a particular talent, it was actually fundraising. It was just unbelievable the way he could put an event together and the way he could get money out of a crowd. And most recently, he chaired a whole series of them, but most recently he was involved in successful fundraising for the hospice facility at the hospital. And so his efforts, I think, are going to benefit people in this community for many years to come, and he will be missed.
Thank you. So I just want to mention that at the beginning of August we had logger sports, and I took some friends from Portland. They had a thoroughly good time. It really was the passing of the torch from one generation to the next. Councillor Hooper's father was recognized for all of his years of envisioning this and building it, and now passing it on to the next generation. So that was a great weekend. In the middle of the month, I hosted a group of students from our sister city, Shimizu, in Japan. They were all a little bit jet lagged, but I actually made them answer questions before they got chocolate. So I got them talking. Kids will do anything for food, mostly. No, they were a great group of kids, and I did ask them if they could ask their elected officials to change one thing, what would it be? And they said not getting homework during summer break. So they get 1 month off in the summer, and they get homework to do over that 1 month off. Another young man said that he would get puppies for people. So, if we wanted to consider that, people love dogs here. They would be on-leash puppies. Other than that, I did actually manage to take a few weeks off in between busy weeks of meetings, so it was a good month. I'm happy to be back. We are off to UBCM at the end of the month, so keep your fingers crossed that we get all the minister meetings we requested. So, with that, any staff now?
Not at this time.
Okay. Motion to terminate. Moved by Councilor Herper, second by Councilor French. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, everyone.